Well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you again so much to everyone for joining us this afternoon. My name is Marisa Limon Garza. I work with the Hope Border Institute here in El Paso. We have been working very closely with the coalition of people, of really dedicated organizations that are making sure that people in our community are getting the services that they need, especially when it comes to rent and to mortgage assistance. So the Coalition for the Common Good has also been part of this effort. So I want to make sure and acknowledge them. Today's call, the webinar, is all about local opportunities for rent and mortgage assistance that are available both in the city of El Paso and in the county. Both entities have supported these organizations' efforts. And so today you're going to hear from 5 different organizations and individuals talking about what they're offering to the community. Our goal with this call is to make sure that you get the information you need to be able to help people that you may know, if not yourself, with these kinds of assistance. Some of them are time limited, so it's imperative to get the right information to the right people so they can access the support that is available. We'll begin first with an introduction and a little opening presentation with Veronica Carvajal and also with Maddie Finucane from Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. They'll help us kind of set the stage to understand what's happening in the state and here locally when it comes to evictions, what's happening with rent and mortgage. We'll then turn it over to Laura Ponce with Project Bravo, who is leading the EPA program and the work that they're doing. And then we'll head over to Mika, who's going to be helping us understand what EP Rent Help is doing in her role with the Paso Norte Community Foundation. We'll then be going over to Carlos Marquez, who's part of the General Assistance Division with the Department of Community Services with the County of El Paso, and he'll be telling us more about the programs they have. And then we'll wrap it up with Carlos Murillo, who will be sharing information from the Office of Congresswoman Escobar and the services they're providing to constituents like all of you. So reminders, folks are on mute. Please engage in the chat function. I see that people are already commenting. We will have Q&A at the very end, but if you have questions that you have now, please go ahead and add them to the chat. We will make sure that this webinar is available to you all afterwards. We will be posting it on Facebook as well as on our YouTube channel. The Hope Border Institute, just for a quick little plug for our organization, is a social justice nonprofit based here in El Paso, but we also work closely in Ciudad Juarez and in Las Cruces. And so our effort is to really focus on the needs that have to do with Catholic social teaching and a just society. So making sure that those that are most vulnerable in our community have assistance is one of our core goals. So that said, I'm happy to turn this presentation over to Veronica and to Maddie. If you would want to go ahead and lead us through, begin guiding us, helping us understand what is happening with evictions. We know that some CARES Act things ran out. We know things are changing every day. So please give our audience a little bit of information about what's on the landscape regarding evictions, rent, mortgage, and the like. And I'm going to be showing a video.
Well, if you could just let me start the video.
Okay.
Marisa, I think my video is blocked, and then I'll share my screen, if that's okay.
Sure. And I'm just
Well, hello everyone, I'm Veronica Carvajal, and I'm an attorney and a group coordinator at Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. And as Marisa was saying, I want to start off by explaining what evictions are. So an eviction is the actual physical removal of you and your belongings. In Texas, that is only done when a constable or a sheriff has a writ of possession, which gives you 24-hour notice. That is sort of the final last step. We are hoping that as many people as possible are able to qualify for rental assistance, and they will be able to avoid evictions. But in case that you're not able to, or in the meantime, as you're navigating the application process, you have to be aware of where you are in the eviction process itself. In Texas, we don't allow self-help evictions. That means that your landlord cannot change your locks permanently or remove the air conditioner or make it impossible for you to live in a property and in that way push you out. The landlord is required to go to court and to follow certain steps in order to remove you. On our website, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully this works. We we are Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So trla.org is our website, and you will find a lot of information here about our services, not only in housing, but also dealing with employment and public benefits, which is what we're seeing the most of right now during COVID, as well as family law. And of course, other civil law services that we offer. When it comes to applying for our services, we have a hotline that you can call, 1-888-988-9996. Our offices are physically closed. However, we are taking applications for our services. Our services are free if you qualify. And as we go into the housing program or set of programs, you're gonna see under eviction guide a number of tools. And the tool that I would recommend people look at is the 10 steps to an eviction. This will walk you through the process. Now, what's really important with evictions is the timing. If you have already been served with a notice and a lawsuit, you must go to your hearing. Even if you can't make it physically to your hearing and the hearing is held in your absence, you will only have 5 calendar days to file an appeal. The appeal will not cost you anything if you cannot afford to pay the appeal costs, but you have to submit an affidavit. You can find that form on our website as well, but it's really important that you get it in on time. So when I say 5 days, I mean that you will count the weekends and then file the following working day that the court is open. After those 5 days expire, you have another 5 days to either move out or to pay 1 month's rent. So if you owe, for instance, April through July, you only have to pay July or 1 month's rent, which would at this time, let's say you would have to pay it in August, and you would be able to stay there the remainder of August and then pay September in order to stay there for September, and so on until your case is heard by a county judge, because the case starts in justice court and then it's appealed to county court. And so it's not a very complicated process, but it is very time sensitive. So you have to be very aware of your deadlines. And if you have questions, go back to our website, give us a phone call, and we can walk you through it. Something else we have done is to create a video that explains the eviction process in Texas. It is both in English and Spanish. And it has some documents that you can use, like the pauper's affidavit, which is what you use to file the appeal. And then you have, again, this guide, as well as a sample calendar that will sort of guide you as to when your deadlines will likely be. Now, these are very special times. And so one of the things that we always recommend to people is you don't hide from your landlord. Talk to your landlord, especially if you're trying to apply for rental assistance, which Project Bravo and Under One Roof will talk about shortly. The reason that it's so important to communicate with them is that you cannot force them to accept the rental assistance. So if you are on good terms, it is more likely that they will comply with the requirements of the rental assistance program, and that you will be able to stay in your property that you're renting. If you have any sort of agreement with the landlord, make sure that it's in writing. That includes text messages, emails, or paper. Keep records of the communications and agreements that you're having. If you decide to move out, make sure that you're released from the lease that you currently have, because they could charge you for the remainder of the lease. Keep in mind, however, that whether you have a judgment against you in court or you still owe the landlord money, the landlord cannot call the police on you. They cannot arrest you for owing rent, and they cannot take it from your wages or from your income tax return. It will just be a judgment that will possibly make things more difficult in terms of you renting other properties, and it may affect your credit, but it does not mean that you will go to jail because you cannot pay the rent. One of the protections that we have right now, it's very different from normal times, is the CARES Act. And if you go back in our website, under the housing section, we have created a map. The CARES Act is a federal act that was passed to provide funding assistance in different ways. And one of those ways is by helping tenants who live in federally subsidized and federally backed properties from being evicted. So typically, if you live in a property that's already been paid off or isn't covered by the CARES Act, then you will follow the process that I just explained to you. And in El Paso, those kinds of evictions have started and they have been underway since the end of June. For CARES Act properties, these are properties that have some sort of federal funding tied to them. And so these landlords cannot even begin the eviction process until July 25th, and they have to give a 30-day notice to vacate, which means they cannot begin to file lawsuits on these properties until August 25th. We estimate about 30% of properties in El Paso fall under the CARES Act. We have a map. If you go here, find out if your property is covered. You can type in your address. And if your property is a multifamily unit, like an apartment complex, you will likely find it here. And you can talk to your landlord in case they don't realize that they're prohibited from evicting you. You can also show this to the judge if you do have a hearing and the landlord has, for some reason, either intentionally or not, has failed to mention that they're covered by the CARES Act, and the deadline hasn't yet happened, the dates haven't yet allowed them to file eviction suits. If you have a Section 8 voucher, you're also protected by the CARES Act. If your landlord has a VA loan, if they have a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, USDA, and a couple of other types of federal loans, they also cannot evict you. So that applies primarily to homes or duplexes that you might not find on the map, but in fact, they are covered. So if you have any doubts, go ahead and contact us at Legal Aid, and we can help you figure out if you're protected by the CARES Act. Now, I'm going to pass it over to Maddie, and she will talk about mortgages. If you are behind on your mortgage and you end up losing the house to foreclosure, the bank still has to go through the eviction process to remove you and your things. And so keep that in mind as well if you are not able to get into for the mortgage assistance programs. But Maddie's going to walk you through some of the other options that will hopefully help you prevent a foreclosure of your home. Maddie?
All right. Well, thanks, Marisa, and thanks, Vero, for that excellent presentation. What Vero has just described, just sort of in the last moments when she's talking about post-foreclosure eviction, is of course a situation that we hope to avoid. So what I'm going to talk about is a tool that Trala built to try to prevent foreclosure. This isn't financial assistance. Rather, it's a tool to help homeowners sort out the very complicated mess that is mortgages and mortgage payments. So some examples of why it's complicated is it's often not obvious to a homeowner who owns their loan, right? You know who you make the payment to every month. That's often not the entity that owns your loan. I'm seeing a comment that my volume is low, so I'm going to try to speak up a little bit. Is that better?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks very much for that feedback. So I was just saying how complicated mortgages are, and you all don't need me to tell you how the stress of falling behind can complicate that even further. Now, in the midst of a pandemic, we've got some new federal protections that are going to be extremely helpful to some, and perhaps not the best option for others, but just sort of layer on to this complication facing a homeowner who's falling behind. So to address that confusion and that complication, Trala built the tool that you're seeing on the screen now. To get the link for this, or the URL to get to this tool is bit.ly, bit.ly/TRLA mortgage. And I'll put that in the chat just when I finish presenting. So this is a tool, like I say, to help homeowners sort through the confusion and complication of mortgage assistance. What are your options when you're falling behind? And this tool, as you can see, is available in Spanish. You can also download it as a PDF. So I think some advocates might want to have a stack in the office and hand one to clients if that's the way that's going. So who is the guide for? It's for a homeowner, not a renter. Vero has just presented brilliantly on on the situation that tenants find themselves in. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a homeowner. And I'm talking about a homeowner who gets a monthly statement. So someone who's buying their house in a more informal way, maybe buying the house from the neighbor, something like that. This tool is not going to be as helpful because, again, this tool is about sorting through the confusion and the complication. So what does the tool do? We won't click through it here because I know that our time is real limited, but I encourage folks to take a look because what it does is support a homeowner who's not able to get what they need from their mortgage lender or their mortgage servicer, another company involved in their mortgage. We'll help you make the phone call, ask the right questions in the phone call. We'll help you search online to get the right information online. And importantly, for some mortgages, we'll help you write a letter. We'll request certain information through this tool and put together a letter for you that you can send to the person or the company that you send monthly payments to. And for a lot of mortgages, that creates a legal right to get information. So I think that's probably the time that we've got here. I'm happy to take questions at the end. I see a question, is this only for Texas or for other states as well? What's in this tool is all federal law, so it is useful to someone in any state. However, other states might have increased protections. I see another comment. Give me one moment. Can you say something briefly about how filing for bankruptcy affects people who are at risk of mortgage default? That's a complicated question that I would like to pass to Vero. Will you take it?
Yes, absolutely. So a bankruptcy is what we think of as the last resort, and there are two types of bankruptcies. Chapter 7 is a liquidation, which means that you are going to get rid of all of your debt and you're giving up your house. And so that the bankruptcy, even if it's filed, so foreclosures are only done on the first Tuesday of the month. And if even if you file for bankruptcy that Tuesday, you can stop the foreclosure and it buys you time to negotiate some terms with the lender so that you can sell your house in the market, which will hopefully get you more money than if the house is foreclosed on. The Chapter 13 is a reorganization, which means that you're not giving up your house, but because nothing is ever forgiven, you have to figure out how to pay your current payment as well as typically a 5-year payment plan for the arrears or the default that you owe. So Chapter 13 is really for someone who just had a catastrophe financially and then was able to rebound and now just needs time to catch up on the default.
Thanks, Vero. I see one last question in the chat. And the question is, some people in El Paso County colonias are paying on the land on which their house or trailer is located. Does this program include these situations? So I'll answer in two parts. The first is a reminder that this is a sort of a tool for folks to use, not a program that funnels information to Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and not an application for financial assistance. But to answer your question, if someone who's purchasing land in a colonia is having trouble getting the information that they need, this tool may help them. It's not designed for that situation though. It's designed for a situation where banks and mortgage companies are sort of non-responsive, right? Where the number or I'm trying to think of a good way to say it, right? Where the technicalities are confusing and hard to sort of pierce through. But if someone in a colonia is purchasing their land from the neighbor, there's not a complication there. There's not a communication breakdown, I don't think. And this tool is not designed for that situation.
And if that is a situation that you all have questions about, we should definitely talk, and you can refer people to us because we're very familiar with contracts for deed, as well as the purchase of vacant lots and mobile homes. And those tend to be in some ways easier, in some ways more complicated than traditional mortgages. So thank you. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, Marisa, for this opportunity.
Oh, no, thank you both. I appreciate all of your knowledge and wisdom. Again, thank you for Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid for all that you're doing. We're going to go ahead and move on at this time to Laura Ponce with Project Bravo. And you are now the host, Laura.
Great. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being on this call or presentation. We only have a little bit of time, so I'm just going to go over a presentation that I have on Project Bravo. And so I will get started. First of all, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. And so before I begin, I just want to mention that we have a lot of different programs and services at Project Bravo, not just the new rental mortgage assistance program. And I want to make sure people know about these programs because these are available to the wider community, regardless of whether or not you've been affected by COVID-19. And so we have a great utility assistance program right now, where if you qualify, we can pay for your gas and your electric bill from now until the end of the year. We have programs that help people with training, help people access free or low-cost health services, help people get their GED. Let me see. And another program, our weatherization program right now is suspended because we are not able to go safely into people's homes, but we are able to do HVAC repairs and startups. And these are mostly focused on households where people can't, for example, start up their own air conditioner or heater because they're elderly, they have a disability, etc. Other programs that we have affordable apartments. We also have a housing counseling program that helps people with foreclosure prevention. And so as was mentioned earlier, having a mortgage is very complicated. And if you either have not been able to pay your mortgage or think that your financial situation is going to be difficult and you won't be able to pay your mortgage, we recommend that you talk to our foreclosure prevention housing counseling staff, because you need to start working on that right away as soon as you know, because time is really of the essence when you are in this situation. And the sooner that you can get the process started of talking to the bank about your situation and figuring out a plan, whether it's to refinance your mortgage or whether it is to sell your property, the sooner you're able to figure that out, the better. We also have a first-time homebuyers program. And so both for the foreclosure prevention and for the first-time homebuyers program, income is not, people don't have to be very, very low income to be able to use these services. And so right now, interest rates are very, very low. And if people have a steady job, they actually can get a very good deal if they want to buy a home right now. Finally, we have financial empowerment classes. And so these, I'm going to mention these a little bit later because they're actually an integral part of what we're doing with our rental and mortgage assistance. And so for our rental mortgage assistance program, it's the EPA program. There are certain, these are the minimal qualifications. There's other kind of layers of qualification that we look at, but the minimal qualifications is that you have to submit a completed Project Bravo application with copies of all the documents. We've been seeing a lot of people that have been dropping off applications with no supporting documentation, no pictures of IDs, et cetera, et cetera. And so those, unfortunately for those applications, we have to send them back to the client until they're complete and the clock doesn't start ticking that we have, that the person has submitted their application until we have a completed application. And this is also complicated because we have people with phone numbers that are disconnected or they're not answering their phone because they don't recognize it. And so if you apply to Project Bravo services, you really need to make sure that you provide a phone number where we can reach you at and that you are picking it up, because there might be some back and forth in the application process. So I can't stress this enough. You must submit a completed application before we will even start to consider whether or not you qualify for services. The household income has to be at or below 200% of the federal poverty level, but we are prioritizing very low income households. You must live in the county of El Paso. And this last point is very, very important. You must demonstrate that your income was involuntarily affected by COVID-19. And so what does that mean is that there's some way for you to document that because of the COVID-19 crisis, your income went down and you are having trouble paying your rent or your mortgage. And so this may be documents from unemployment. This may be a letter from your employer saying that they reduced your hours. It may be a positive test result from COVID and you had to take time off to quarantine and get better. But there has to be some type of physical documentation that lets us know that you were affected by COVID-19. We have some families that have applied for services that they chose not to work during this time. And unfortunately, those families are not going to qualify because it was a voluntary reduction in income. And so I just want to make sure that people are aware that that's one of the most important key elements of your application. Our funds are limited, and so the way that we are dispersing our funds is we're focusing on assisting very low income and vulnerable families first. And so it's not a first come, first serve type of service. We're looking at the application pool constantly and deciding based on the vulnerability of the household who gets service and who does not. And so people need to be very much aware that this is not a guarantee. There's a lot of factors in place, but if you are not able to pay your rent or your mortgage, it's very key that you apply now so that we can help you and hopefully be able to take care of this application. It may take 2 to 4 weeks to determine eligibility from the date of submission of the complete application. As I mentioned before, if a month ago you submitted an application with no documents, that's not considered a complete application. It's not until all the documents have been submitted and we're able to assess whether or not you qualify. What are our mortgage and rental assistance program? For our mortgage assistance program, we're able to help with a maximum benefit of $1,250 per month for no more than 3 months. So the max possible benefit is $3,750 total. And the household must be willing to participate in housing counseling. So it's not just a matter of showing us that you can't afford your mortgage. You will be asked to participate in the counseling process. So there may be documents that you have to submit. We may have to communicate with your mortgage lender so that we can make sure that you can afford to live in the home after we pay your mortgage. For the rental assistance program, the maximum benefit is $1,000 per month for no more than 3 months of rent. So a $3,000 total benefit. There's other rental assistance programs out there, and so we cannot overlap them. And so there is some checking back and forth that we will be doing to make sure that we're not providing a benefit to a household while another program is doing it. You must be willing to participate in personal budgeting and financial education. And so that's going to be kind of a 1-hour class that you take online or you take remotely, and that'll be part of the process. And finally, the landlord must agree to the following. They have to agree to discount the rent, the past due rent by 10%. They have to agree to waive late fees. They have to agree to not evict you for 60 days. And there's other requirements. And so as was mentioned before, you have to be in communication with your landlord because they have to agree to all of these different stipulations. And if they don't, we're not able to provide the service. For both the mortgage and the rental assistance, we don't provide the payment to the client. We provide it directly to either the lender or the landlord. And so that's why we need to have the participation of those entities. This is just a little bit about the application process, and I know I'm running out of time, but you can download the application at our website, or you can pick it up at one of the centers. You need to complete it. You need to submit your documents. And then once we go through your application, and if all the documents are submitted, then we will, and you will qualify, then you'll get a call to confirm an appointment time. And so you'll be given an appointment, and in there, we'll talk about all the different programs and services that you may be eligible for. And so the, utility assistance, we have a lot of funding that we got through CARES for that. So at the very least, you may qualify for that. And then the rental and the mortgage programs depends on some factors. And then we have 6 centers all over the county of El Paso. In front of the centers, there's drop boxes. So look for a big black box. Make sure you can pull out the applications through the non-secured area, and then you put in your application and documents in the secured area. Make sure you put it all in one envelope so that nothing gets lost. And then finally, just some numbers. So we have our main number for information, 562-4100. We have a number for EPA, which is, sorry, let me just get to this last page. So the EPA hotline, and then we have a number for people that are COVID positive, because we do have some additional services we can provide. And if you have time, go to our website and let us know if there's any, so that you can get more information.
Nada, there are questions in the chat that just came in. So when you're talking about utility assistance, is it income based, or just if they're past due and have the threat of disconnection?
No, all of our programs are income based except for the housing counseling and the first time home buyer. And so people have to be at or below 150% of the poverty level to be able to qualify for utility assistance. And
does the organization replace air conditioners for the elderly?
We are able to repair air conditioners, and it just depends. We can only do it if there's an existing air conditioner. So if there's no air conditioner in the house, we can't replace it. And if there is an air conditioner, we have to try to fix it. And if it's not fixable, then we can replace it.
Okay, great. And same question about the colonias before we transition to the next presenter regarding delinquent land payments. Is there any for them?
Yeah, we've already asked our the state about this, and according to them, we cannot pay for land payments. Okay. We can only pay for the home. So the mobile home was behind. We could help with that payment, but we cannot help with the land.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much, Laura. Again, make sure you visit those websites and get the phone number for their services. And Andrea, I see your question about specifically partnering with the El Paso Apartment Association. So it's timely that Mika Short from the Paso Norte Community Foundation is now going to present about El Paso Rent Help. So Mika, you now have the platform.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about the rental assistance program. Talking about the City of El Paso's COVID-19 rental assistance program, we, the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, are part of the Under One Roof Collaborative. We were selected through a competitive proposal to facilitate $10 million in rental assistance to those directly adversely impacted by COVID-19. So our Under One Roof Collaborative is comprised of the Paso del Norte Community Foundation, Under One Roof, which is the charitable arm of the El Paso Apartment Association, Baker Ripley, a community nonprofit out of Houston, and Harvey Home Connect, which does emergency like technology services, and they're also based out of Houston, and Barracuda PR. So I'm going to take you to the El Paso, the EPRenthelp.org website to kind of go over the program. So for the timeline, we opened our enrollment process for landlords last Wednesday, and we have extended that deadline to Sunday, August the 2nd. We are going to accept applications beyond that August 2nd deadline on a rolling basis contingent upon funding availability. But so far we have a little over 1,000 properties enrolled through their landlords to participate. So I kind of wanted to show at this participation directory, you can see every participating property that has enrolled so far. So like I said, there's over 1,000 of them. So a tenant can do a search for their property to see if their landlord is participating. This program is structured such that the landlord has to apply on behalf of the tenant. So it's very important that there be good communication between landlords and tenants. So going back to the homepage, wanted to kind of cover some questions about landlords or that landlords may have. So here they would go to the landlord page to submit their application to participate. So what they will need to do to enroll to participate they will need to provide their banking information because payments for the rental assistance are done through ACH. And they would have to agree to the participation terms and conditions. So like Laura mentioned, the 10% discount on rent, waiving the late fees, not evicting for 60 days. And what we have experienced is that there are some landlords that just do not want to participate. So their tenants have called us and asked us how they can participate if their landlords are not enrolled. And the unfortunate answer is that they won't be able to. So we have called their landlords and tried to convince them to participate, but at the end of the day, the landlord will decide if they want to or not. So following the landlord enrollment period, once a landlord has been verified and their banking information deemed accurate, they will receive an email with a link to apply and to submit the joint landlord-tenant application on behalf of their tenants. So this is where it will be important. You'll see here that the landlords will work with the tenants to fill out the application and to provide information about their level of income, how they were impacted by COVID-19, adversely impacted, and other information regarding prioritization of funding. This program is not on a first come, first served basis, and immigration status is not considered in the distribution of funding. So how we're prioritizing the funding for this rental assistance is based on risk of eviction if the applicant did not qualify for unemployment benefits, if they did not receive a stimulus check, and of course on the area median income levels of 80% or below. So this is the information that we're going to use to be able to identify those in greatest need. So once the applications are uploaded, the joint landlord-tenant applications are uploaded, then they are submitted online, and that's when we go in and assess and be able to prioritize those with the greatest need. And so we are accepting the joint landlord-tenant applications through August the 2nd. The deadline's 11:59 p.m. That's Sunday coming up, and we are going to leave it open on a rolling basis for those that don't meet the deadline, but also considering if funding is available. So it's important for anyone who is interested in receiving rental assistance to not delay and wait until the last minute. I call it the mañana mentality of El Paso. That is not something that is good in this situation. We want to get those applications submitted as quickly as possible so we can make sure that everyone has an opportunity to receive rental assistance. And so, like I said, we've had over 1,000 properties that have enrolled so far. And the greatest applications so far have come from the zip codes of 79936 with 140 properties, 79930 with 106, and 79912 with 78. So going down the list, I would say the smallest zip codes represented are like 79911 with 3 applications or 3 properties so far, 79913 with 2. So we are getting a good mix of participating property types. We have 12 condos participating, 7 mobile home units, 448 multifamily housing properties, 336 single family properties, and 21 townhomes. So we are making a big effort to try to get the word out to as many landlords as possible, not just multifamily housing property owners through the apartment association. So the feedback that we've received from landlords that do not want to participate is that they don't want to agree to the 60-day period that they cannot evict once their tenants receive the rental assistance. So I think that's the biggest heartburn that landlords have with this program. So that's really everything that we have for this program. I don't know if we have, like, on our website, it shows what kind of documentation is needed so everyone can prepare in advance to make sure that they meet these deadlines. So I don't know if there are any questions that I might be able to answer.
I think you've addressed them. And just for clarity, and Veronica, maybe you can talk to this too. A lot of these programs are funded through the Federal CARES Act. And so they come
Yes.
with stipulations that came from the federal government to the state, to the city and the county. And each of these entities have packaged their dollars in a way to try to meet the needs of as many people as possible, specifically for housing considerations. So some of that did come, it's important to know that there has to be a partnership between the landlord and the tenant, and it can cause tension, it can cause heartache, but ultimately with this limited amount of money that's available, this is a partnership that was necessary. So Nika or Veronica, I'm not sure if any of you or Laura wants to talk to that, but I know we're seeing a lot in the chat about questions regarding this kind of partnership and why things were set up this way.
So if I could, this is Veronica. So back in 2009, El Paso, both the city and the county received a lot of money from the stimulus packages in response to the economic recession. And legal aid provided legal services to people. And what we found is that landlords would take part in the program and they would get paid back a month or 2 or 3 months of rent, and then they would evict the tenant, because they could still do that, right? They were getting paid back rent, but there was no protection for the tenant moving forward. And the recession did not rebound as quickly as everyone had hoped. So when TRLA was asked to draft the agreement for the landlords and the tenants, this time around, we really looked at what was going on throughout the state, throughout our program of legal aid in other cities, and then what we had experienced in 2009, and we crafted what we thought were some protections for tenants in that regard. And so it is challenging to get the landlords to agree, as Mika was saying, to those 60-day self-imposed moratorium. But if we don't have that, then we're going to have basically landlords getting paid back, but there's no protection for those families. And because the pandemic is still an issue, and because staying at home is even more important than it was in 2009, we really are hoping that this is still a term that will remain so that people are protected moving forward. There have been some concerns in the community about this being a landlord-driven project. And as Laura said in the chat, the city required that. And personally, I think that it's okay that it's that way, because what you don't want is to have a lot of applications by tenants where ultimately the landlord cannot be forced to take part. And so now you have both Project Bravo and Under One Roof having to go through all of these applications that will go nowhere and will delay the process for everyone else. And so we might as well know from the very beginning if the landlord is willing to give up, the late fees, 10% of the overdue rent, as well as a moratorium on future evictions for 60 days.
Yeah, I do want to add that there have been situations that we've seen where the tenants have been past due on their rent since January. So in order to participate, tenants had to have been current as of March, when the COVID-19 truly hit and started to adversely impact our community. So I know that there are some that they're like, oh, I lost my job end of 2019 and I haven't been able to pay. And so that would not qualify for this program. It has to be an adverse economic impact due to COVID-19, and the tenants had to have been current leading up to March.
So there's a comment about wondering if having this be landlord driven will prevent the tenants from applying. And I think no, I think what I'm hoping will happen is that the tenant will talk to the landlord and say, hey, there's this program available, will you apply with me? And that together they will get the application submitted, and we'll hopefully can help each other out. We do have a lot of small landlords who only own 1 or 2 houses, who don't know how to navigate the the web or do a lot of things. And so hopefully the tenants and them can work together to get the applications in.
Yes, and if there are challenges accessing technology, the local YMCA locations throughout the city have made their computers available for any landlords and tenants who need to access them to upload their information and to enroll to participate. And the Mexican Consulate's office has done the same.
Excellent. Thank
And
you.
one of the things that I want to mention is that the payment has to go to the landlord or the mortgage provider. It cannot go to the tenant. And so that's part of the contracts that we've signed with the city and other entities that are providing this funding.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you, everybody. We're going to jump over to Carlos. Carlos is with the County of El Paso and is working in the General Assistance Program. So Carlos Marquez, you are now the host.
Thank you. Okay, there we go. I was about to say, we're still seeing the, okay, so good afternoon. I'm Carlos Marquez, Program Manager of the General Assistance Program with the County of El Paso. My program normally services all of El Paso. We provide rent, mortgage, and utility assistance for those experiencing financial hardship and meet eligibility criteria. Our usual funding comes from two main sources. The County of El Paso will designate general funds for assistance and a grant that we get through the Emergency Food and Shelter Program under FEMA. Due to current conditions, of course, with COVID-19, the county received federal funds from the CARES Act to help individuals and families directly affected by the pandemic. So $1 million was allocated for rent and mortgage assistance to my program. We have since changed our focus 100% to those residents who live outside of the city limits, but within the county. We have made major changes to our process to become more accessible to the community. One thing, though, of course, is that due to the pandemic, our facility at 6314 Delta Drive is currently closed to the public. We have staff that are strictly teleworking from their homes. We didn't want this to affect accessing our services, so we placed our application on our website. The application can be completed on a computer or even a smartphone. For those who don't have access to a computer or a smartphone, we can also take applications over the phone. We accept supporting documentations via email, picture text, and we also installed a mail slot for those who prefer to drop off at our facility. Our online process consists of the landlord first enrolling in our program. They complete an online application, which consists of basic demographic information along with a W-9 and other supporting documents. Once they have enrolled, tenants can then submit their applications. Also, as part of the changes we made due to the pandemic, the federal poverty level for eligibility was increased from 100% that we had before to 150%. This allows more individuals and families to qualify for assistance. We provide $700 per month for 2 months of unpaid rent in arrears. So that's a total possible assistance of $1,400. Let me take you through our website so I can show you how to find us. I'm gonna share my screen. So if you just go to Google and EP County and just put in EP County, we're the first ones that come up, and this is the main website. I wanted to make sure everyone knew how to find us, and so you click on community services, and this is our department. So these are all the divisions that are under the umbrella of community services. Of course, you would click on general assistance, and it takes you to our website. It provides all the information that you need. If you're not sure if you fall in the area which we're serving, you can click on this link here for the zip code eligibility. And there's some zip codes that are 100% outside of the city limits. So those we know that they're eligible. But then, of course, those that are within the city limits are not eligible. And those that are deemed as to be determined, those are kind of the ones that fall in between the city and the county lines. And so what we have here is a tool for you to see if you're able to qualify. Let me go back here. Yeah, and so in regards to the online application, everything is on our website. We also have a flyer that we put together. It's an electronic flyer that has workable links that'll take you to the website. It also explains the 150% guideline of the federal poverty level that we're following. So it'll give you an idea, like for a family of 4, monthly is $3,275 and annual is $39,300. So that kind of provides some guidance there. It'll also kind of go through the documents that are required for both the landlord and the tenant. And again, all these links will take you directly to our website, which will give you access to all the documents that are required. I also wanted to mention we're pending a grant from the Texas Department of Agriculture to assist the Colonia residents with COVID-related financial hardships. This is through our Community Development Division, which runs the Self-Help Center in the Agua Dulce Colonia. This money also cannot be used for land payments either, but it's for mortgage payments up to $2,000, and it also provides grocery stipends. So, and one last thing that I just wanted to mention is that we also we have a new member to our community services team. Laurie Gonzalez Flores is our new migrant outreach coordinator. She's going to be connecting with immigrant advocacy organizations in the community to work with them to help immigrants and migrants navigate services available to them in our region. And so that was something that I also wanted to mention.
Excellent, Carlos. Thank you so much. And we're very excited to have the county make this investment, and part of the work that y'all are doing is so important. So to have Laurie on board is great. We are sharing in the chat quite a few bits of contact information, organizational links. So if you have information you'd like to share, that's a place to drop it.
I will definitely post that.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're now going to go over to el otro Carlos. Thank you. So now we're on to Mr. Carlos Murria Villaseñor with Office of Congresswoman Veronica Escobar. You are now the host.
Thank you, Marisa. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for the work that you're doing, helping the people of our community. I understand we're short on time, and so I'm cognizant of that, so I'll be quick. Just wanted to speak briefly on 3 items today. The Congresswoman and the services that she offers to the constituents in this congressional district, an update on the IRS and the economic impact payment, and a quick federal overview and update on what Congress has done to specifically address renters and homeowners. And so thank you, Marisa, for introducing me. I'm Carlos Murillo, District Representative for Congresswoman Veronica Escobar in the U.S. House of Representatives. One of the main items that the Congresswoman has a privilege of doing is assisting our community and helping El Pasoans who are having trouble with federal agencies receive responses or get information that is necessary. While we can't always guarantee a favorable outcome with that federal agency, we will do our best to help you receive a fair and timely response to your issue. If I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly with some contact information, just because I know time is running out here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that and hit share, and just making sure everyone can see this. And so I just wanted to continue and say that you can visit escobar.house.gov/forms/casework to submit that request. If you don't have access to a computer or a smartphone, you can go ahead and call our district office at 915-541-1400. We have someone at all on lines between the hours of 8:30 and 5:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And an update here specifically for the economic impact payment. A lot of people are unaware that they're entitled to receive one. This might include people who don't normally file taxes because they're retired, they either have low incomes, receive SSI, supplemental security income, or veterans. If you haven't received your stimulus check and you're eligible, you have until October 15th of this year to register under irs.gov/non-filers enter-payment-info-here. I'm going to go ahead and put this information in the chat as well for the Zoom. Please go here. If you have trouble filling out the form, you can contact the IRS specific helpline at 1-800-919-9835. The form is in both English and Spanish, and so is the helpline, I believe. And so I also, apart from this, wanted to provide a brief update on federal action. Last week, the Senate finally held a committee hearing on the HEROES Act, which was passed in the House late May. At this level, we really understand that one of the main issues that people are facing during the pandemic is receiving emergency rental assistance. The HEROES Act, which would be the stimulus bill to follow the CARES Act, which has provided grant funding and funding throughout the nation, would provide about $100 billion in rental assistance through McKinney-Vento Emergency Solutions grants, which could be used for short-term, medium-term rental assistance, any rent-related costs, including utility payments, rent and utility debt, or RERs, debt RERs or debt fees, and security and utility deposits. If passed as is by the Senate and signed by the President, it would also extend the ban on evictions for non-payment for a year from the date that it's enacted. The bill would also provide $75 billion in assistance for homeowners to prevent mortgage defaults and property foreclosures. And although we can't predict what will happen in the Senate, we're hoping that they do act quickly and pass this. But again, if you can't drop off, just again, want to reemphasize the casework that the Congresswoman does to help those individuals and people who have issues with federal agencies. If you can't email or call or fax any of the documents that you need, the mailing address is 221 North Kansas Street, Suite 1500, El Paso 79901.
Thank you, Carlos. I think that's going to wrap up our webinar for today. If there's any other additional questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. A few reminders. I mentioned at the beginning of the call that the Coalition for the Common Good is a group of organizations and supporters who've really wanted to make sure that those that are most vulnerable in our community are not left behind. And that particularly included those that were left out of previous stimulus support. So all of these programs, through some diligent efforts and hard work on behalf of all these folks, made sure that no one is excluded on basis of their immigration status. So that's not a factor here, and so we're grateful for the work of all these people. So thank you once again to Veronica, to Maddie, to Laura, to Mika, Carlos, and everyone else for joining us today. We've had support from Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, from Project Bravo, from EP Rent Help and the Paso Norte Community Foundation, through the El Paso County General Assistance Fund, and through the Office of Congresswoman Escobar. Thank you so much for making the time to be part of this presentation. This will be recorded and it will be posted on the Hope Border Institute Facebook page. Make sure that you follow us there. It'll also be on YouTube. So we do have a channel that you can follow and like there too. We will be providing more information. It's part of our effort and commitment to make sure that the people in our community have what they need to weather this public health emergency and economic emergency the best that we can. So please make sure you follow us on social media. We'll be having some new reports on immigration related work coming out early next week, so be on the lookout for that. We are excited to have you all. Thank you again for making the time, and we hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Marisa.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and end. Dun, dun.